All right, re-recording. Hello, everyone. That's the official community meeting for Velero. Today is May the 30th. And with that said, please keep the code of conduct and just behave. I'm going to paste the link to the community meeting notes into the chat. So please add yourself, add your topics there. I'm going to share that, or maybe it doesn't make sense to share now since I have one thing to mention. So I see Ansho added some stuff and Raghu added some stuff. So yeah, let's get going with the statuses. And then Ansho, do you want to take it away? Should I share or you want to share?
Let me try and share. Do you need to give me access to share? Or
Really?
okay. Let me. Oh, I think I can.
I think you should be able to share.
Yeah, I can. Hope you folks can see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so a couple of status updates. One is the PR that I was tracking in the Azure. Sorry about that. One I was tracking the Azure plugin. This was for introducing AAD support. That support was added as part of a previous PR, but we basically enhanced that functionality by introducing a new parameter in the backup storage location so that it's more deterministic. And we also introduced a new field called storage account URI, which users can specify themselves so that there are certain power users which encounter throttling of storage accounts. That issue can be bypassed to this fix. So yeah, pretty much like these two fixes, but it's a involved PR. This went in the Azure plugin, and hopefully we'll take this out in the next release. The second one is the support for multiple volume snapshot classes in the CSI plugin. This I just recently raised a day or back. It's in a draft state, but I think it's still ready for an early review. So folks, please see if you can start reviewing it. Yeah, these two. That's it.
Sorry, I was in mute. Right. Any questions from anyone on this stuff? No? Okay. Thank you, Ansho. One status thing from my side came out that our notes are too big, so I have hide them like the year 2022 to a new note, and I've linked that into the main one. So if you want to track something from the previous year, you can do that there. So next thing I can see on the list is from discussion topics, Raghu.
Hi, Arlen. Can you share? I mean, I'm joining from iPad.
Yeah. I'll do that. Yeah. I would just, in case you want to share, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you can click on that, the first link that I mentioned, right? Yeah. Right. So this is a PR that we Catalogic has contributed in. This got merged into main, but I have a question because this problem is kind of serious. So it should be backported to 1.11, and I actually asked on Velero Dev. So I'm just wondering, I mean, how it will be decided and how it will be done. Backporting to 1.11, for example. I mean, does other developers have to chip in saying, yeah, this is good to go for 1.11? How?
And this is actually a part of the process that I'm less clear on myself, even as a maintainer. I know we might have a 1.11.1 and 11.2 releases, and I actually haven't really been involved in those scoping discussions. So I don't know if we have tags for those to call them, like similar to the main release, or I don't know if anyone else on the call has been in that process before, and to know how we normally decide for those patch releases, what goes in. Orlin, I don't know if you have any insight on that.
No. Unfortunately,
this may be one of those areas where historically this has been the VMware maintainers kind of getting together on their own to do that, and we may need to put some more kind of community involvement in that process as well. I know people have asked something on Slack, and we've discussed sometimes on individual PRs. that'll be discussed or on issues, but I don't know if there's a formal process, and maybe there needs to be. I also haven't checked the governance doc lately, so I'm not sure if that's addressed there or not. I don't think it is, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I haven't seen any responses in Velero Dev. I did post it there.
I mean, certainly there's a practical way of this particular issue. I think bringing it up in Velero Dev is probably a good thing to do right now. I just think we also need to make sure that this process is formalized, if not already, and well known as to what how to go about this. Because, like you said, this is the kind of thing where if someone says, "Hey, this affects me," I think it should be in the next 1.11 release. And then there may need to be a discussion. Is this too big a change? I mean, not for this one, but in general, when that comes up, we try to avoid CRD changes, for example, which again this doesn't have. But I'm just saying, as a general point of view, sometimes there's discussion. Sometimes we say, "Hey, this other thing we wanted." It's a pretty big thing, but it may be too big of a change. You should just upgrade versus, hey, this is a low risk fix and it's a high impact and we should, backport it. And I know that kind of thing happens kind of on a per issue basis. I just don't know that we've formalized and it's documented as to what the process is for someone in the community to bring this up as, hey, I want this in the next patch release.
Right. I think having process definitely is good, but at least we can proceed in the context of this issue.
Right. Yeah. As I say, for this particular issue, ping again on Slack. And
okay.
If it hasn't come up, we can try to address it again at the next meeting when a larger percentage of the maintainers are at the meeting. And if you're not able to join at that time, if you could ping Shubham or myself, to have us add it to the agenda, we can do that as well, on your behalf.
Yeah, that'll be good. I mean, I couldn't join last week and probably I won't be able to join the next Tuesday as well. I think just a quick summary of this issue, right? I mean, when the backup runs, you don't see the status update anymore, like the number of resources being backed up. It stays at 0 out of 0. So I would consider that fairly, important issue to fix. And 1.11 is just released, right? So, and there is a while to go before 1.12. So I'm sure this would be very helpful to you.
Yeah, I agree. I think this makes sense. And, I imagine that this isn't the sort of issue that's, necessarily important enough to make its own, accelerated schedule for 1.11.1. But since I know we're going to have a 1.11.1, it makes sense to me that this should be included in that.
Right. Okay, I'll ping again on the dev Slack, and we'll see before the next Tuesday meeting. I'll ping you guys again. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Scott. I'm not sure if I got the issue. But can you prompt me a little bit so I can ask around?
There's a specific issue in the general. The specific issue is here's a fix that we got onto the main branch. It's a bug fix, and the suggestion is, hey, we want this on the next 1.11 patch release. Whenever 1.11.1 comes out, we want to backport this to that release branch. So there's the kind of current concern of what do we need to do to get the discussion going for this particular fix. And then I think there's a more general concern is I don't think the process for main release is 1.12, 1.13 as to, we release candidates and we go through that and we address what's in the scope. That's we've been working on that process and making that more community friendly. I don't think we've had the same level of effort around deciding what bug fixes to backport for the, previous patch releases. So 1.11.1, 1.10.2, whatever. Because I know we do tend to have discussions around, this is an important bug fix, let's backport it, or this is a CVE, we definitely have to backport it. But I think those discussions have tended to be more informal discussions among the VMware maintainers, and because I really haven't been involved in those discussions for the most part. And I think that's an issue in general, but we may want to bring into the governance doc and be a little more clear about how we handle scoping and backporting issues.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we followed any kind of process until now, or it's just like
right. That's my concern.
Right.
I know we do follow a bit more of a process around feature, candidates for the next release. And for bug fixes, there's no real process involved. You submit a PR, it gets merged to main, and then it makes it in the next release automatically. But we need backporting from main to 1.11 release branch, for example, so that we make it into the next 1.11 patch release, it's less clear to me what that process looks like, because there's a decision to be made. Is it, is this a low risk, high impact, whatever, or is this one of these, for example, hey, here's a change that involves CRD changes, API changes, that's too big, we don't want that in the patch release, versus this is just a simple bug fix, fix the problem, there's no risk, low risk, let's backport it. But that's a, there's a decision that needs to be made on a per PR, per issue basis to do that kind of backporting. And I just don't have much insight as to how that is generally handled now, other than I know I've seen individual discussions. There have been times that other maintainers have pinged me saying, hey, should we backport this? Or they've asked me to backport something. But I don't really know what the overall process is, especially for someone who's submitted something, who's in the community, not a maintainer, and they say, hey, I want this in the next 1.11 patch release. What do I need to do to make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at a minimum, you can always say that maybe if 2 or 3 developers say, okay, something like that, you can go ahead and backport. Yeah.
Another thing that might make sense, and again, this is more of a process question. I don't know if we've done this before. I don't know if creating a separate GitHub issue saying backport this PR to 1.11 release branch and create that as a GitHub issue. I don't know if that, I haven't seen that happen before. I'm just thinking that's another possibility here that might be a little more formal than pinging someone on Slack. But I don't know. I mean, that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, just building on what Scott said, some generalized criteria and description of what can be backported, what should not be backported, what are the requirements for that backport as far as tests and that sort of thing.
That's something that might make sense to add to the governance doc, actually. I don't know what, again, I don't think we address backporting at all there right now.
We don't.
And if there's a more appropriate place for that kind of process, I'm not, maybe there is, I'm just not sure. But I think this is one of these questions where, whether you're talking about a maintainer or a contributor to the project, the question comes up, time to time, hey, here's the fix. Either it's my fix or maybe it's not my fix, someone else fixed it, but I've seen the fix on main. I know it affects me. I'm on 1.11 right now. I want this in the next 1.11 patch release. What do I need to do to raise the issue to get it discussed?
Yeah,
and that's as a general process point of view. And then there's a specific issue this week of, we've identified this issue. We know we want this in 1.11. What do we need to do to get this fix backported? And it might be as simple as, hey, maybe create a PR that cherry picks this to the release 1.11 branch. And then if 2 maintainers act it, that goes in. Again, I don't know that that's the process. I don't know that that's appropriate, but that's another possibility that would make sense.
I think we could just say at this point, we should raise it for discussion over some course of time, so that the folks in this time zone and the other time zone can all have appropriate time to weigh in. And then,
related on the schedule side, Orland, do you happen to know what the current plan is for the next 1.11.1 or whatever? Is that in discussion, or do you have any idea?
I don't have idea because I haven't checked with Pradeep so far about this one, but I can update you tomorrow. Okay,
that'd be good, because again, if we know when, like for example, if the cutoff for that is soon, then addressing this particular PR becomes a little more urgent. If the cutoff is in a few weeks, then we've got a little more time. But we want to make sure that this particular PR is able to be backported and included in that release branch before that release cutoff.
Okay, I'll try to either speak with Pradeep and provide you that, or he can write into the chat if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And by the way, about the process of backporting stuff and when and what exactly, should be some kind of combination between the what we do right now plus the versioning that we use, right? I mean, the the method that we do for the versioning is actually having very good description what kind of changes should go into the patch release, right? So, for example, stuff like CRD changes that you say, they shouldn't be part of the patch release because that's like a breaking change. And on patch release, we should not have a breaking change.
Exactly. And in general, and this is and I think there are exceptions to this, most of the time, we also want to, I mean, basically patch releases should be bug fixes. I mean, the general idea is it's a bug fix. There's no CRD changes. It's relatively low impact and no backwards, not a breaking change. There may be exceptions to that in some cases. But again, that's kind of the general principle behind these releases, is that you're supposed to be fixing bugs here. So, but even with bugs though, there's the question of, oh, this is a minor bug, no one cares about it. We don't need to backport this versus this is one that's impacting users in a larger way, and we definitely want this.
Okay, so I think that should go through few rounds of discussion, and we can formalize it. If everyone is okay with this one.
Yeah, if we just have an ongoing topic, just to like raise it for input. Yeah, cool.
Sure.
Right, I think we can move to the next topic in my list, if you can bring up that as well. So that's about the CSA snapshot. We did have a discussion 2 weeks back. So I'm just curious if this kind of, reached a standstill, looks like. So again, I'm trying to figure out what's the best way forward, right? And one person, I think, somebody approved the PR. And I guess it needs at least one more approval. And there was a lot of discussion on the issue. So Scott, I think you added a comment and there's a clarification after that. So we probably had to decide, right, how to proceed with this. I mean, it's kind of clear based on the responses that we can merge the PR and still continue discussion about the second level of weight for the timeout or not.
Is that a question for anyone specific?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the end of this issue, can you just scroll down to the end? Right, Scott, you raised an issue, few comments before this, right? The real question here is which weight are we talking about? There were two weights, right? One is in CSA plugin, that is for the snapshot handle to be ready. And there is a second polling happening in the main process backup controller, that is for the ready to use field to be set. So there are two. This PR is addressing the first one, right? In the CSA plugins, it seems to me that it's safe to merge the PR, and even there is an approval for that. So should we do that, or in general, I'm just wondering.
I think, and part of this too, I think this kind of related to, because there was not part of this, but the other change in the kind of data mover 1.12, you probably saw the PR there, where we're changing the CSI plugin to split that, to make the wait for ready to be asynchronous, whereas that first part as to where whether the so the snapshot handle is available, that the plugin is going to wait synchronously for that, and then the ready to use was the part that was asynchronous. And again, that goes back to, I think I mentioned that only because that's also relevant in this question of, at what point can post-hooks run, and at what point do we not need the live volume, anymore in terms of that.
Right. I mean, so the decision then that needs to be made is, should the CSA plugin honor this timeout parameter or not, right? Currently it is not. It's hard-coded at 10 minutes.
Yeah, right. And I think I think, and I know I've talked to Shubham about this at one point as well, because we've had some issues around CSI timeouts. I think a hard-coded timeout at 10 minutes in general is about, and that's one of the things we tried to do in 1.11 was we made some changes to basically try to identify all the hard-coded timeouts in Velero and make those use a configurable value. But at the same time, we want to minimize the number of parameters. You know, we don't want 15 different timeout parameters. So if there are multiple scenarios that the same kind of parameter makes sense to use. So I think this the 10-minute hard coding definitely needs to go away. I guess Shubham's not on the call, is he? Because I know I was talking to Shubham about this. Emily, maybe you remember. We were talking about this, I think, internally in the context of OADP last week. That hard-coded 10-minute timeout. Does this PR address the issue we were having there as well?
Sorry, is the question for?
Oh,
for
sorry.
who?
Sorry, I was asking Emily if she
Oh,
is. I know I was talking to Emily and Shubham about this last week. Not in your PR, but about this hard-coded 10-minute timeout and in the context of OADP. So I'm not really sure if this relates to what we were talking about there as well. Might be good for Shubham or Emily to look at this PR as well, just to see if that connects to that prior discussion.
Yeah, I can take a look and see.
But Emily, I think we were talking about a hard-coded 10-minute CSI timeout, right? And in the context of some OADP problems we were having, and one of the questions was, do we need to be? Should this, reuse an existing timeout value, the CSI timeout, or some configurable parameter versus being hard-coded?
Yeah, you're right. I remember this now. So this might address that. I need to look at it.
okay. Yep, that'll be good if we can get a review and then we can decide.
Just a couple of cents to add, right? So I think this parameter as of today for regular cases, it might not even be working, right? Because it's today in the waiting for ready to use phase and not in the snapshot handle phase. I'm just trying to call out that I am in alignment with this PR. I don't have any approval rights, but just putting my 2 cents. We had this conversation over the comments, and I think Jiang also agreed to it.
And I think I think Shubham is already on the reviewer list as well. Since I was talking to Shubham and Emily about this earlier, maybe I could talk to them about it again internally later today. And maybe, and again, if this is consistent with what we were trying to go towards anyway, then it would make sense. Then he could probably act it as well. Or if if he has any concerns, then raise that in review, and we can go from there.
All right, sounds good. And Orlin, I added just one more thing right now, which is like a minor issue. Can you go back to that? Yeah, I like this bright background much better, Orlin. Yeah, I'm not a dark background guy. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the other one was for editing, and it was like super bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, again, we talked about this last time. Not a big issue. The doc change was made in the main, but I think it kind of belongs in 1.11 docs as well, at least, if not before.
Yep.
So I can submit the PR if you guys want, but I think last meeting we said.
Yeah, that makes sense. But basically, it's if I could summarize this so that I understand it, we made the API change, and I think 1.9, and then we forgot to update the doc section. So when the doc section got updated, it was only on main. So it's not showing up in the earlier releases where it's also relevant.
Right.
So this isn't a question of backporting a PR to a previous release branch, because this is the website. This is a question of making those same doc changes in the release specific documents for those releases where it's relevant.
That is true. So I can submit the PR if you want, or if you guys want to do it, go ahead and do it anyway. That's fine too. No, either way.
If you want to submit it, that's fine. It looks like Shubham he did the original one here to the main. And was this change only made to main, or was it also made to 111, or was this before 111?
Only to main. I think it's merged only to main. Yeah.
Got it. So you should confirm to make sure that I'm right. My memory is that it's 1.9. We added that. If I'm correct, then we want to put this in 1.9, 10, and 11. But you should, if you're going to submit the PR, just confirm that that's the right release, that we first added it.
I can do
we
that.
want it to whatever release we added it forward.
Sure, I can confirm
And
that.
I think that was 1.9. I'm just not 100% certain off the top of my head.
Okay, we'll do that and we'll submit the PR.
Okay.
Thank you. That's about it from my side.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, that's super quiet. Folks, do you have some news about the China KubeCon? Is there any progress of arranging your travels?
We have a proposal. We have some initial level of supports, and we're working on papers.
Yeah.
And Orlin, I was going to talk to you. We can talk offline as well. I was thinking that it would make sense to submit a joint proposal for myself and one of the other maintainers based out of Beijing for a talk on Velero, and we can kind of talk offline about what that should be, whether it's data mover focus or something else.
Yep.
But I think that would make sense.
Yep. Yeah. As I think we spoke about it once or twice. But yeah, I shouldn't be on that thing. I'll try to drive if they're possible to do a kiosks or something like that. If we can have some other representation there. Yeah, and I don't know exactly which, whether it could be myself and Daniel, or it could be someone else. I don't know who's most appropriate on the in terms of someone based out of Beijing to do that with. But it would make sense to have a kind of a joint Red Hat VMware just talk from from two maintainers.
And Cloud Casa.
Yeah, well, there's two types of talks. There's the regular talks that are two people max, and then we can do their panel discussions, which also would make sense to submit, where you can have 3 to 5 people on.
Sure.
And the rules are, for an individual speaker, you're allowed to be on one panel discussion and one other talk.
Sure, I wasn't listening carefully enough, Scott. Sorry, I thought you meant that.
I was just thinking in terms of a normal kind of 2-person talk. I was saying there was one. It would make sense to propose one with myself and one of the other maintainers. But we'd also talked a bit about it would be good to put together a panel discussion with several of us from different companies as well.
Yeah. My feel is that if you ask Daniel, will be the most appropriate, as you and Daniel were like the 2 main persons from the Red Hat and VMware to the contributions as of now. So I think it will be good representation, you both to be on stage. That of course depends on Daniel as well.
That works for me. That would make sense.
Yeah,
and then we just need to kind of to work out exactly what we want to talk about, whether we want to focus on the data mover, more general, kind of what aspect there. Especially considering, I know there's historically one of the problems that we've had with getting talks approved at KubeCon is, I think there's a perception that, we're too vendor specific in some of this stuff, and that they wanted things to be a little more Kubernetes general. And if we can try to focus the talk kind of in that way, that would be great. But again, obviously we still want to focus on things we're doing.
Yeah. And are you going to apply for KubeCon itself, or for example, Cloud Native Con? Because there'll be like, not Cloud Native Con, sorry, Open Source Summit, because there'll be like the one that we did in Austin. There'll be, so I think.
So I'm less clear how that works from there together, because I know at Open Source Summit, they had a kind of Kubernetes related track, which is I think where we ended up. I don't know if the Open Source Summit side has a Kubernetes or Cloud Native aspect when there's also KubeCon there. So I guess we'd have to look at the categories of proposals to see if there's a possibility to get a Velero talk on the Open Source Summit side versus on the Kubernetes KubeCon side. I'm not sure.
I think it's a little bit different. The ultimate goal is just to have something accepted officially
exactly.
Either way, just to
exactly. But what I mean is that for the conferences in the US and Europe, they're totally separate. So we had a talk approved at Open Source Summit, and I don't remember exactly what the category kind of track that it was under, but I think there was a Kubernetes related track there.
No, it was called ContainerCon.
Okay, so if that track exists I also don't know. I don't know if you know this or not.
I'll check
in
that.
terms
I'll
of
check
the talk approval process, is the open source summit side versus the KubeCon side handled differently, or is it the same committee reviewing all of them?
It should be different review board, but
Okay, because
I'm
I
not
know
sure
when
about-
they're separate
because when-
conferences, obviously it's separate, but I just wasn't sure when
Yeah.
they have it co-located together, if that was different.
Okay, I'll check that and I'll ping you in the Velero dev about this stuff.
But yeah, we do. I guess we just need to look at the categories in both sides and
Yeah.
see where it makes the most sense to propose. As
Okay, that's
as
okay.
Wes
That's
said, it doesn't matter to me which side it's on. The question is which is most likely to get approved.
yes. My gut feeling says open source summit we have better chance to get approved, but that's my feeling, nothing else. But I'll check that with the because I've applied to be in the KubeCon review board again. So I'll check if that applies also for the open source summit or not, and we can decide from there. I'll ping Daniel as well in the chat if he's willing to.
Yeah.
to do that.
Another question I had, because I know one of the things that I noticed in the proposals is that they said the proposals for all of the talks need to be in English. The talk itself can be in English or in Chinese. Is there some value in doing a bilingual thing with Daniel giving a presentation in Chinese, or should we just do the whole thing in English? I mean, I don't know how big the market is there for Velero, if that makes any sense, or it should just be all English.
In terms of market, I cannot say. Maybe Pradeep can provide some data there. But again, I think if the talk is in Chinese, I think the chances are higher. Because
and obviously this is a question
it's
of
like primarily, yeah, it's focused for the local market. So
right, exactly. And obviously for both speakers, clearly it's going to be half and half at most. My part's going to be in English, obviously, but
yeah.
I just didn't know if it made sense to sort of split that out and have a kind of a bilingual talk, or if it just made sense to do it all in English, since the mix of speakers is such that.
To be honest, I haven't seen any bilingual talk so far in my experience,
that might just be awkward and weird. It may not work.
Depends how you presented it. If it's like a theater kind of setup, maybe it's gonna be very catchy. I don't know, but apart of that, I really don't know. But yeah, all right.
So,
I think okay. Let's start from there. Let's see the trucks and the review stuff, and then we can talk with Daniel.
And I think I forget the deadline's in mid-June. I think I don't remember exactly.
Yes, 18th, I think 18th of June is the end date.
Yeah, so we got a couple of weeks.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not sure if it makes sense to reuse the thing that we tried to apply with a few KubeCons already with the panel discussion. Remember we did it with Dylan back in the day.
Right. Yeah. I remember we did that. I wasn't there for that one myself. I mean, things have changed since then. That might be a good base to start with.
Yes. Yeah, because if we want to apply for panel, we should have something, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should definitely have a panel proposal, especially. Yes. And the other difference, do you remember who was on that panel last time? It was Dylan and like which companies were involved?
It was me, Dylan, someone else from Red Hat. It was Fong from Dell, and I'm missing the fifth one. But it was VMware, Red Hat, Dell, I think. Yeah. So I think there were 2 Red Hat and 2 VMware and 1 Dell.
Okay, yeah, because I think 5 is the limit. So we should.
Oh no, and Dave switched from Kasten. He was the 5th one.
But he was still at VMware then.
No, he was already at Kasten.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is, even though I'm in the program committee, I cannot get insight of why our panel was declined. We practically covered everything from diversity standpoint on stage towards the not being like a super corporate and sales pitching and stuff.
Right.
it was
So-
declined. I'm not sure what is the actual reason behind
Yeah.
it, and I cannot get that.
Yep.
So we have to either rework it a little bit. I'm sorry,
Yep.
and then apply for this one. Yeah.
So one other question for you. I know certainly with Coupon, I know one of the issues with getting approval is there's just so many presentations, so many proposals, a very small percentage get approved.
Mhm.
Do you have any insight as to whether that percentage approval might be different with the Beijing? I mean, it's a smaller conference, but it might be a smaller number of people submitting where that ratio of submitted to approved, is that going to be better odds this time, or is it going to be about the same?
I think it's going to be the same, and it's for example, for the European edition, there were like 1,786 or something applications.
Yeah.
And just 1/4 or 1/3 was approved, and it was practical to get into the agenda, and that was for 10,000 people. In China, I think they're except they think that there'll be around 2,000 show-ups. So I think the overall approved talks will be less because there'll be much smaller conference. But then you have the open source summit, which make it a little bit bigger. It's super hard to compare both and to reuse the same numbers because it's a totally different setup. So,
Okay.
but I can try to address that to Chris from CNCF. What will be the ratio, or how many talks they think they can approve and put into the agenda? Not sure how that will work for us and what kind of answer we'll get from this one, but we can give it a try. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, let me review CFP. And okay. So for the rest of the folks who are listening and not active in that conversation, if you want to be part of these talks and part of the panel, and you think you can bring value to the conversation, ping me or Scott, so we can work out the whole logistics around this one. And if you want to be on stage and to be famous, so yeah. And it would be great if we have more diversity in terms of companies on stage, as well as the day stuff that like a mandatory for any CNCF events or Linux Foundation events anyway. So yeah, if you're interested in joining us on stage, or in this particular case, Scott, I'm not sure if I'll be on stage, but I'll be the center of organizing all this stuff. So just drop a line in Slack and we can make it. All right. Thank you for everyone for adding yourself into today's attendees list. I'm super happy that list is growing. I don't know how that's, maybe people are more and more happy to add themselves into that attendance list.
Well, there's
So,
a few more people from
anyone else?
Cloudcast are joining these days. So
Yes, I can see that.
yeah,
Which is super
that's
cool.
increasing village.
Yeah. So, by the way, how is going there? Do you think you can share something? Like, is it going well with these offerings? Do you face some issues with the core open source Velero and stuff?
We have few users who signed up, and we haven't run into any major issues. So it's actually cool. So we can see that people can see their backups and restores and backup storage locations, everything in the Cloudcast UI. So I would say that's going well so far.
Nice. I think the community is waiting for your promised input of like a single cluster kind of UI stuff. So
Definitely.
I'm eager to know whenever you start planning to do that and how we can help you with that. So yeah, cool. Okay, if that's all and nobody else wants to bring anything, I think we can close for today and talk to you in 1 week. All righty. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And have
Thank
a
you.
great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.